Whenever people talk about underrated indie cartoons, they usually talk about cartoons from the late 2010s to modern times, such as Monkey Wrench, Dinosaria, Ongazilling, and Ursats. And whenever they bring up pioneers that deserve recognition, they usually bring up Eddsworld, Ruby, and Alan Becker, save for Channel Federator. But there was one pioneer that is almost forgotten about and never really discussed in praise videos. This cartoon's name is Homestar Runner. This always intrigued me, since how could a cartoon be so popular yet somehow forgotten? To the point where people only talk about what happened to it, and how it used to be one of the go-to sites of the web. This is further proved if you compare the most popular video with other old Flash cartoons. So today, I'll be looking at their history, what they're all about, discussing my feelings on the show, and explaining why they should be discussed more often. So with all that out of the way, let's get burning. Homestar Runner first originated in July 1996 as a kid's book called The Homestar Runner Enters the Strongest Man in the World contest, which was created by Mike Chapman and Craig Zobel. This was meant to parody other children's books, since Mike and Craig thought they were terrible. This book saw the first appearance of the titular character Homestar Runner, Pom Pom, Strong Bad, and The Cheat. This also was meant to be an inside joke with their friend group and family and wasn't really meant to be published. But Mike's dad decided to send it out to 80 different publishers without his knowledge, though each one of them rejected it. There was also going to be a sequel called Homestar Runner Goes for the Gold in 1996, which would have been the first appearance of Strong Bad's brothers Strong Mad and Strong Sad, but this was abandoned, and wouldn't be released until 20 years later on its anniversary. Later in December of that same year, Mike would make his first animation of Homestar Runner on the SNES. After that though, he would abandon the series for 3 years until 1999, when he saw how popular Flash animation was becoming. So he and his younger brother Matt would start to learn how to animate in Flash. Later in June, another book called Where My Hat Is At will be made, which would introduce Coach Z, the 2 E's were removed at some point, and Bubs, and would also be the first ever web appearance of Homestar Runner. Finally, on New Year's Day 2000, the website homestarrunner.com would be made, and this is where everything would officially begin for the series. When you first went on the website, this is what it initially looked like, with random objects being links to certain pages. The lemon links to their first ever game, which was also the first appearance of Marzipan. At some point, they would make a new main page that became the status quo. This was known for being really interactive. Like for example, if you hovered your cursor on one of the icons, Homestar would say the icon's name while an animation in the background would play. There would also be alternate versions added over time. Anyway, their first ever 4 cartoon will be released titled Marshmallow's Last Stand, which was also the first appearance of the Cave Tower and the Poopsmith. The art style was also different from time to time until early 2002, when they finally set on an art style that will remain consistent from then on. Basically, the format of the series was just the cast members' wacky misadventures, with some side series like Marzipan's Answering Machine and Holiday Tunes. The website wouldn't really gain much traction until the debut of Strong Bad Email in August 2001. Also abbreviated as Speemail, the format was Strong Bad reading emails sent by fans, in which he would give off his witty and goofy responses, and sometimes do stuff based on the questions asked by fans. The second episode also introduced the final main character, which was Homestar, who was created because of a spelling error, but the email that got people talking was the 58th episode titled Dragon, which shows Strong Bad drawing a dragon called Trogdor the Burninator, with a subsequent song that honestly is pretty awful song-wise, but humorous and memorable. It was also around the same time that the website reached several million visits a month, even surpassing the original web host Yahoo. The craziest part is that it had no ads and only spread through word of mouth. Even before Trogdor, the brothers Chaps actually quit their jobs due to merchandise sales taking care of their costs to run the site as well as their living costs. In February 2004, they would receive a demo tape from the band They Might Be Giants, which they used in the 99th episode of Strong Bad Email. This episode also turned Homestar into a modestly hot girl. This wouldn't be the end of their partnership, since they would collaborate to make a music video called Experimental Film in July 2004 on their website. This would also air on MTV in England, effectively making it the first ever web cartoon to air on TV. Also on the same day of the demo tape delivery, they received a life-size replica of Tom Sawyer from Mystery Science Theater 3000. Homestar Runner would also be referenced in the final episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, along with being referenced in its spin-off Angel. There will be many references to Homestar Runner in various media throughout the years, technically making it the most referenced web cartoon of all time, behind Ruby and Digital Circus. It's also the second known web cartoon to receive video games available on console, more specifically Strong Bad's Cool Game for Attractive People in 2008, which was released 2 months after Happy Tree Friend's false alarm, and Pokemon at the Inventory in 2010. Speaking of 2010, this is when the British chaps started making tunes, as by that time, they were married, had kids, and burnt out from making weekly shorts for the past decade, so they agreed to put the series on hiatus. During that time, they would achieve writing jobs on shows like Yo Gabba Gabba, The Aquabats Super Show, Gravity Falls, Wander Over Yonder, and the Mickey Mouse Shorts. Despite this, they would occasionally still release tunes, but things would finally return for Homestar Runner on April 1st, 2014, with them going on a semi-regular schedule from now on. Unfortunately, Flash by 2015 would see its beginning to the end, and by 2017, it was announced it would close in December 2020. Thanks to the Flash emulator Ruffle though, the Homestar Runner website would still retain much of its original functionality. Now that I've described the website and its major accomplishments, I think it's time to discuss what I feel. There are many tunes, but I'll just go over ones that I personally like. Strong Bad Email Virus is one that really captures my attention. The plot is basically Strong Bad getting a virus and everything turning to hell, even going outside of their screen. The most unique thing about this tune was how it was like a new old Flash website, with everything being clickable and leading to strange things. For example, the pop-up scene used to have an actual pop-up occur, which would be detected as a virus. Unfortunately, the rougher version didn't carry this over, but overall, this tune was outlandish for the time. The most perfect way I could describe this short is from the comment by Gungoroth on the YouTube re-upload. The next short is titled Strong Bad Emo Parenting, which is about Strong Bad telling a story about he and some of the characters taking a health class about how to be parents. The main thing I remember was the singing words being changed sometimes. This also ends with a cameo from the creator of Gravity Falls, Alex Hirsch. The next short is titled Back to Our Website, where Strong Bad and Homestar sing a song in celebration of 25 years on the site, all while making a lot of old references. This is my favorite one because of how much of a massive internet nostalgia fest it is. I think it's time to go over some characters, with my personal favorite being Coach Z, just because of how funny he is, with his energetic voice and the fact that he's just a total screw-up of a person. I also like to note that in one of the Strong Bad emails, Strong Sad shows a tape of Strong Bad's embarrassing talent show performance in school, where it shows a young but adult Coach Z thanking Little Marzipan for her performance. This puzzled me since it's shown he's a stalker who's in love with her, and the fact he canonically knew her when she was young makes this 100 times creepier. Now another character I'd like to talk about is Strong Sad. He's another favorite due to his summer voice and depressive humor. He's generally the butt of the joke by his older brothers Strong Bad and Strong Bad. There's actually a feature on the website called The Secrets That I Keep, which shows Strong Sad's old memories of when he and Strong Bad used to get along. This is generally considered to be the saddest and most hard-hitting moment in Homestar Runner. I also talked about this moment before in previous videos. The last thing I have to say is that the funniest moment for me in Homestar Runner doesn't actually come from any tunes, but in Strong Bad's Cool Game for Attractive People. During episode 3, Battles of the Bands, when Strong Bad is sabotaging Coach Z and Bub's performance, he mixes the record box together, which leads to Coach Z punching the shit out of Bubs. Now that I've said my personal thoughts, I now want to discuss the importance of Homestar Runner. So like I said in the beginning, Homestar Runner isn't really mentioned much in the animation sphere, which to me is crazy. Homestar Runner is perhaps the first ever indie cartoon to make it big, even going as far as to being stated to have pioneered video making on the internet. This level of accomplishment is only what few sites hold, let alone a web cartoon. Another thing is that it was airing around the same time when Flash was just pure edginess such as Newgrounds and Mondo Media, while Homestar was the antithesis, which is another reason why the website was popular as it gave a breath of fresh air from the edginess. Though I think Newgrounds did more because of its user-generated content and free will, but I think one of its most important impacts is inspiring the show Battle for Dream Island, which is currently one of the most popular indie cartoons today. Heck, Jack and Jellyfy based their whole profile on the HR logo, which is why I even discovered the series in the first place. Another thing that should be said is that the British Chaps were offered to make a TV series for Homestar from Comedy Central and Adult Swim, and they turned both down, with the reasons being that they wouldn't have the creative freedom to do what they wanted to do, and were more keen on staying on the internet. This shows how independent they were in their cartoon, which should be commended. Another point I'd like to bring up once again is the amount of references and mainstream popularity. Homestar Runner was the first web cartoon to ever be referenced on TV, and also paved the way for internet animation to be more sought out than television cartoons. Hell, Adult Swim once stated Homestar Runner kicked their ass, which, funny enough, years later, there would be a Robot Chicken sketch on the series, which was absolute garbage. It's just them dying and a few edgy jokes. They didn't even consult the British Chaps about making this sketch. But anyways, I'd also like to make a point about if HR still holds up today, as the internet landscape has changed quite a lot since the 2000s. Personally, their style of humor is still clever and unique, alongside their lines being for sure quotable. The characters are also well established with personalities you can tell apart from, and dynamics that you can't not find interesting and entertaining. Overall, I would say HR still holds up, and more importantly, deserves acknowledgement and appreciation. And that's all I have to say. Indie animation is a very awesome subgenre of animation, but I think a major problem is the lack of well-deserved credit. Homestar Runner is generally the prime example to me as a pioneer in internet animation, and it's still going strong to this day, with more merch, tunes still being released from time to time, and a loyal fan base which produces memes, fan art, and fan animations.
3, 2, 1! Some animals give me boners!
Anyways, follow my Twitter and Blue Sky, and check out my fan art if you like. See y'all next time.